We're back.
And we're back.
Pew, pew, finger guns.
Pew, 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 pew.
Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Hey guys.
I'm Laurie.
And I'm Elle.
And this is the
Cynical Therapist.
And this week's sesh is kind of brought to you by the Kardashians.
Yes.
Because I was watching Sunday's episode. And it's the episode where, so sad, where Khloe finds out Tristan cheated.
Again.
I forgot again until
Twice.
You reminded me.
That's 2 times, I feel like.
Ooh. So we thought that we would talk about cheating today.
Yes.
So.
And is it a deal breaker? I guess it's is it a deal breaker? And what kind of personality type can essentially get over a cheating partner?
That's really interesting. I feel like for me it would be, I think of, and we were looking up like other celebrities that's happened with, so we were talking about it, and I do remember I remember Reese Witherspoon when Ryan Felipe cheated, and Gwen Stefani when Gavin Rossdale cheated. Mm-hmm. And what I actually was super excited about was that they didn't stay. Even if they had maybe tried to work it out for a little bit, they ended up, going their separate ways, and they're both of those women are just powerhouses right now, which is
which may be the reason they were cheated on, because there is that streak of celebrities who are strong are almost applauded for being brave enough to leave a cheating husband. It's not, I really don't think it's about bravery. I think it's about your internal core value and how you feel about yourself. I do believe that cheating can be worked through. I do believe that, I mean, a lot of couples come into therapy, and first let's define cheating, and also, hey, this isn't therapy if you're struggling or whatever, you're going through it. This is not real therapy. This is 2 therapists talking about stuff. Just
a disclaimer.
So a lot of people come into therapy exploring how to get over jealousy and how to get over their cheating spouse, or their spouse who's convinced that they're cheating or paranoid or insecure or whatever. So there's big pieces of that. And cheating is defined in very different ways. I mean, there is cheating by texting an ex-boyfriend, or cheating by having, an affair, or getting a hooker, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or even chatting to people that your spouse partner is threatened by. That might be cheating. I don't know. So you have to define it in your own way. And I think it's, with my husband and myself, it's, if I wouldn't do it with my husband sitting there, then I shouldn't do it.
Right.
Right? And that to me is cheating. Anything outside of, hey, we're together and I need to respect my partner. Anything outside of that to me is not necessarily cheating, but it's put in the same bucket, right?
Sure.
And I'm not jealous. That's not who I am as a person. But I'm also kind of possessive, and I think that's different.
Yeah.
So I don't know if, from the beginning, I feel like Khloe's relationship has been, her choice in men has been tragic. With the Lamar Odom thing, remember that?
Yeah.
She was with him. He was cheating on her with drugs. That was the other woman at the time.
I think that's actually a really important aspect of, if you're, if you continue to date people who are, who are cheating, or who are also exploring what, your part in it. That's kind of you're the common denominator. Not that you're causing it or anything like that.
But your permission. Almost, right? You're essentially giving permission to somebody to be disrespectful to you.
Yeah. The piece I was so frustrated about was it being a friend of...
Another friend.
That makes it...
Wasn't the other one a friend? Or a friend of her sister's or something like that?
Yeah, I don't remember who the other one was.
It was kisses from her baby daddy. Are they married? Are they married?
Her and Tristan?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay. So it was him making out with another one of her 17-year-old sister's friend, or something like that. Where it's she's probably 25 now, but it's still in my head. I'm she's 14, but she's really not.
They're still so young.
I know, they're still little kids in my head.
Yeah, they probably are in their 20s.
Billionaires or whatever. I'm but think about the children. Poor thing. It's more than what was caught.
Yeah.
It was. And that's the whole piece. It's now that it's out, what do you do? And is it different if you're a celebrity? Because now you have a whole bunch of people offering you feedback. And that attacks your self-esteem. And that attacks your relationship.
Sure.
I couldn't imagine being publicly cheated on. I could not imagine that.
I don't think I could stay. I don't think I could stay regardless, but there's no way. Like it's not that, it's people knowing. Do you know what I mean? It's like a shame thing.
Yeah.
Like, because it's
if it's between us, it's okay. But if it's between us and then the whole world, like, oh my gosh, then now I have to actually change something, right? That's the piece for me. It's like, because people are holding me accountable. So is that the permission piece? Whereas as soon as I'm held accountable to actually do something about it, then I feel obligated. It's not because I have a great self-esteem or that I'm taking care of myself, that my child deserves a good father, because they have a baby now. Yeah,
and I don't know that between us, like, it actually makes me like think of, I don't know why, basketball players. I'm like, obviously,
because they're young,
very stereotypical. But there's no way. Like, it just like is so cringy to me thinking of dating somebody who's then
famous.
Yeah, famous and out doing things like that, and me being like, well, it's okay because it would just really, like, I just know myself as a person. Like, I don't know if it's jealousy or if it's possessiveness or what it is, but like, I don't like to share.
Yeah.
I never have. Like, I mean, like, that's like...
Yeah, totally. No, I get it.
That's not like a new thing. Yeah. It's like, it's mine.
Yeah,
like,
that's mine.
Yeah. I just couldn't. I couldn't. Well, we were looking up, so I think there's some of that, also, like, scandals.
Think about Tiger Woods and think about the Kobe Bryant piece too, where it was like, yes, these are young men who have incredible athleticism. They're rocketed to this position of power. This crown is bestowed upon them as a person who is so exponentially valuable that women are literally throwing themselves at them. I don't know. I don't think I would recommend them getting married. Do you know what I mean? Where I'm like, don't get married. Don't have babies.
Yeah.
Sow your wild oats. And then when you're ready to settle down and commit to something that takes a little bit more effort and kind of discipline,
then go ahead.
And like being able to tell yourself no.
Yeah.
That's a huge piece of marriage, right? Or otherwise, just why? Why are you getting married? I don't understand. Like, what is the pressure here? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, because it does take effort and discipline and all those things. I actually thought of, when you were saying that, I was thinking of, I don't remember what I was thinking of, but when you were saying, or when you were talking about the basketball piece, but like, I mean, it's not that you can't be with somebody and agree that you're going to be in an open relationship and all that, but that's again, you both agreeing.
Totally, that's the conversation.
Yeah.
And there's so many open relationships. I mean, now it's labeled polyamorous. But it's like, even most of the people who are in a polyamorous relationship, communication is key, number one, right? And like, the conversation about jealousy is like paramount. You have to sit down and you have to talk about it. Otherwise, it's cheating.
Yeah.
But if you are with a married couple and you're the third person, or you're with a married couple and you're the other couple, and everybody's involved, then it's not cheating.
Right.
Right? But do you think cheating really is about relationships?
No.
Right. But where do you think cheating comes from?
I really do think it comes from insecurities of the person who's doing it.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, I think, I mean, obviously there's other reasons. Like I think it's somebody who's habitually cheating, or somebody who does it, which begs the question, like, obviously, like, she gave Tristan another chance,
Is it permission, or is it an opportunity to earn your trust back?
And then if it's twice, is it going to be habitual? Like, it's
isn't it already, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you kill two people, you're a serial killer. You know what I mean? Like, one would think that this would be, an issue.
Sure.
And if you are publicly attempting to, I don't even know, like, reconvene a relationship and reconnect and build trust. Meanwhile, your baby daddy is literally making out with your sister's friend, who's like lived in your house and like communed with you and had dinner with you. And that's like, if it was just some hoe, okay, right? But that's like a family member. And that to me is like,
I feel like that's a personality thing too. And I know this is a blanket statement, but I say there's two types of women. And I don't mean anything against women, but there's women who will sleep with your husband or boyfriend and women who won't.
Yeah.
And again, I think it goes back to insecurities. Like, not saying that...
Or entitlement.
Yeah.
Right, where you get to, again, give yourself permission to do things instead of telling yourself no because it's not the right thing to do. Being able to say to yourself, you know what, yes, this guy's super hot, he's super into me, and I feel terrible about my body, my face, my life. This will make me feel better for a day, 3 days, whatever, and be able to say, you know what, but for the long run, the sacrifice of my relationship with my friend or feeling bad about my self-esteem, if you have no foresight, I don't think you're able to like manage the impulse there. And I think if you're young and like wasted, it's almost like that thing where you build it all together. It's like, oh, I was young and I was drinking and I was caught up, and it's like, okay, that it makes sense. It's a great reason, not a good excuse.
Well, and I think that whole thing of getting caught up, like I think Dr. Drew did a like podcast or an article one time about how intensity is not love, right? Ooh. So like then when Tristan, you know, his feelings towards Chloe and them having a new baby and all that stuff, versus like I'm at this party and I'm like looking at somebody and getting those butterflies or whatever those are initially, that intensity that as you're in a relationship for a period of time, it starts to dissipate, it starts to go away.
Yeah, the lust part of it, the fantasy part of it. And I think the fantasy is what people are attracted to.
Totally, which is why Brad Pitt, when he was married to Jennifer Aniston, and obviously you see what happened with Angelina.
Borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. And you see what happened with her. I mean, that's it. They were in that movie together, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where it was like
hot.
It's hot.
And you're like
intense, and it's
like, I'm not bi, and I was like, oh my gosh, like how can you not? There's chemistry there, and it's obvious chemistry.
Sure.
I mean, but they're two incredibly attractive people.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like just evolution tells you like, oh, this person is beautiful, this person is sexy, I want to breed with this, I want to procreate. It's not necessarily like I feel like I can write poetry about you or whatever. It's more like I need to impregnate this thing because this woman is gorgeous, and that makes so much sense to me. It's not right, but that's like the kind of the farce of monogamy. It's like if you're not ready to be monogamous, don't. That's pretty simple.
Well, and that's why I think some of it is that selfishness of, I could, right? It's not about that, because they probably know if it's somebody who's habitual, like they don't want to be in a monogamous relationship, but they are as like a safety thing, like, right, I can have these things on the side, but I'll stay in this. I'll pretend that at the very core of me that this is something I accept. But secretly, I'm either on the side online trying to hook up with people, or I'm giving myself permission to have these fantasies, or I'm watching too much porn. I mean, whatever your limits are. Yeah. And if you're incapable of being monogamous, you have to be able to tell yourself the truth before you can tell anybody else. Sure. And most people who are in that like split, I think a lot of women want to be married because of the marriage or the wedding, but it's not the marriage. The marriage is, and I would say this to my clients, life is long. Like it's a long the wedding's
time.
One day, the marriage is a long time.
The marriage, I mean, if it's a good marriage, is going to take a minute, and the lust is gone, and the laundry and the dishes. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, that's what life is.
The mundane.
Yes, the everyday, the meal prep, the freaking bills. Like, it's just like, this is not romantic. I would rather be a bottle service at a club with a hooker. You know what I mean? Like, this sounds so, especially if you have millions of dollars, right? And it's like, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's, if you see yourself, because this is really important too, because I do think before I met my husband, I had a bad habit of being with people that, you know, were maybe cheating or wanted to be in an open relationship or any of that. Like, and I do think that it's important for you to evaluate your side of that. Like, what were my insecurities? What was going on for me?
Yeah, it just wasn't right for you. The people you were meeting weren't right. But we try, like, I think I've tried to morph into what somebody wants instead of really kind of evaluating what I need and then finding the person to match what I need.
Yes.
Instead of like figuring it out later, it's like figuring it out and then coming into a relationship with these, I don't know, like the structure in place. Like, oh, this isn't going to work for me, and this isn't going to work for me, and I'm willing to negotiate this, but these are my 10 deal breakers. Yeah. You know? I mean, if you have 10, which I have like 50.
I know, I think I have like 20. And the questions are like, you can't meet somebody, you meet them through Tinder and you're looking for a relationship,
Yes.
and then you go on a date and you're like, have you ever cheated? And they're like, no. Somebody who's habitually cheating on people is not going to tell you.
They're not even gonna know what that
they've
means.
cheated before.
Like, what? I mean, and the person who stops you and is like, what do you mean by cheating? That's probably the person who's honest. Like, well, actually, I have a date after this date, and I have a backup date if that one doesn't work out. You know what I mean? But this is the hookup
Just in
culture.
case.
This, I mean, right now,
it is.
In Long
It
Beach,
is.
like, STDs are through
Like, rampant.
the roof. We
Yep.
brought back syphilis. You're welcome, America. Long Beach.
We brought back
We
syphilis.
did. I feel like we should take credit
Syphilis
for
was
that.
so Bloomington, Indiana, where I went to college, was the syphilis capital of the U.S. Like back in 2003 or something.
Really?
Yeah.
So maybe you brought it to California. I'm just kidding. Hey! Be like, that's some Shakespearean shit. That's hard to do, man. The syphilis country.
Syphilis.
Right? But it's the hookup culture. And also, I mean...
1 in 3 people have herpes. Speaking of like
one
hookup
in three,
culture,
yeah.
like just
and one
wear
in 4 is
condoms.
HPV. And I mean, there's so much...
It's funny as we talk about cheating and we go on to this like
Sex ed.
STI talk. It's like nobody's thinking about it in that moment. They're not like, oh.
Well, it's like the conversation at that date when you're thinking about, sweet, after this we might have sex. You're not going to pull out your clipboard or probably your iPad at this point and be like, will you fill this out for me before we get into bed together? Because a lot of the younger men that I have as clients have no concept of how to evaluate a woman for an STD. They're like, well, she looked clean. I'm like, are we in the 80s?
Yeah.
What do you even mean she looked clean? Of course she looked clean.
Yeah.
She was going to have sex with you. If she was, I don't know, if body parts were falling off, she probably wouldn't be hopping into bed. But yeah, there's that piece of, I'm going to dinner with somebody, we're going to sit down. Am I going to tell you
Do people
that...
go to dinner anymore? Is courting like a thing? Like I just
Right,
hear about like,
I mean,
they just wanted to like meet up and grab a drink, and like I just like, what happened to getting out of
Coffee?
your car, knocking on the door, picking somebody up? And I get it. It's because it's like, well, I don't want them to know where
Murder me.
I live, or like
I don't want to get murdered.
I understand that, but like just like you said, hookup culture, like courting is just not a thing anymore. And you know what? I do think that women and girls and anybody who's in the dating age needs to, demand that they are courted. There's nothing wrong with
Demanding
that.
respect.
Yeah.
And also commanding respect by standing up for yourself. And that's a self-esteem thing. And I remember in my 20s, I didn't have the self-esteem to be like, I deserve. You know what I mean?
Right,
it was
right.
more like, I guess. I don't really think I had the self-esteem until I became a mother, until I had some like kind of accomplishments under my belt. And you really don't have a lot of accomplishments. I mean, theoretically, until you're in your late 20s, early 30s, you might, but it's pretty rare to have like your life set up.
Like
in your 20s.
established and all that, yeah.
And I think when you have something to protect, you're more likely to respect yourself.
Sure.
Right? It's like, I'm not going to tell you where I live if I have a nice house.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we don't know each other.
Do you think that when we're talking about the hookup culture and all that, do you think we're going to see more cheating? Like, as that, like, what are your thoughts on that? Or do you think it's going to be more, how like there's like he, they, she, like there's a lot of more fluid stuff.
Yes.
Like, do you think there's just going to be more open relationships?
I do.
Or do you think there's going to be more cheating?
I think there already is. I just don't think it's been widely established. I also am very curious to see the spectrum of relationships, right? Because there are relationships. There's that primary marriage relationship, which is very like pretend to be a princess, vows in front of God, right? So if that's the one, then the 10 would be the polyamorous that have 2 married couples and they kind of switch over and everybody has their own spot and their own role. And it's like a community living, right? But that also feels very strange and sticky when it comes to like the paperwork piece, where it's like, but what about insurance? What about funerals? What about, what about your power of attorney? What about your, your stuff at the hospital? What's it called when you sign the paperwork saying don't...
Oh, like the POAs or the do not resuscitate.
Totally. Like who comes to your bedside?
Yeah.
When you have 3 partners?
Yeah.
Who's allowed in the room with you? When you have a baby? When you have 2 husbands? Or whatever, like, or 2 partners or whatever
That
it's
sounds like
called.
so much work to me.
That's what I always say to my husband. I was like, why would I cheat on you when I can barely handle 1 man? Like, 2 men? I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I could do 2, 3 men. Oh, One's enough for me.
Yeah.
That's enough for me to manage and focus on and stuff like that. Sometimes that's even too much.
Well, when I think of like sister wives and stuff like that, I do feel like, because there's even like some animals that will mate and then go away. The female will go away with other women to raise their young.
I mean, that's how originally human beings co-created. Like all the women would stay and nurse each other's babies while the men would run off and
which is why outside of polygamy, I think that just having a great group of girlfriends, like there's so much
community.
Because there's so much you cannot get in that relationship, and I think that that sense of community outside the marriage, people to support you, people to rally,
and that's the piece
so
of jealousy,
important.
though. Like if you are a possessive, controlling, and jealous partner, you're trying to isolate your partner from all the things that make them a whole person. The person that you fell in love with, you're trying to consume them and hold their little flame until it's snuffed out, and it's like, I don't like you anymore. It's like, well, because you took away everything that made me me.
Yeah.
Right? And that's when people cheat, I think, is when their partner has become something that they believe their partner wants instead of the person they actually fell in love with. So then there's three people in the relationship. It was the pretend person that you were pretending to be when you met, right? The person that you morphed into based on some weird algorithm that you came up with about your partner. And then there's the person that person begins to resent because it's strange. You're like, who is this alien?
Yeah.
Because this is not who I met. Now you've become this nervous, resentful, jealous, possessive human. And of course I'm doing everything to run away from that. And if I know that your deal breaker is cheating, then I'm terrible at communicating.
Yeah.
It feels like an easy solution. Like, well, I'm just going to cheat. And then I can apologize, and she can be so angry where I don't ever have to control or talk about my feelings or change my behavior. I can just move on to the next one and be totally fine.
So do you think sometimes people do it because they're ready to get out of the relationship?
Yes.
I think when we're talking about Tristan and Chloe, he cheated. I mean, he literally cheated as she was like giving birth. I would be just in and of that self, I would be like livid.
The powerful emotions, and I don't know right off the top of my head, and I want to quote it, this is like a 10-year-old statistic, but domestic violence has an 80% increase during pregnancy. A woman is more likely to be beat up when she's pregnant ever in her life, which is horrifying.
It's horrifying.
But it actually makes sense because there's something inside of that woman that ties a man down, which is the baby, right? And that's somebody that's going to take all of the attention away from him, is this baby, right? So the baby is actually a threat.
So he's like acting out?
There's two threats, right? There's that woman who's carrying the baby, and then there's something that's going to take the attention away, right?
Yeah.
And she's so helpless.
Yeah.
Which is sad and so strange and so twisted, but it's like, oh, well, of course, right? Of course.
No, it is.
But the baby, that child, now, like internally during the pregnancy, the only time where you can actually control a child's environment is exposed to so much emotion and so much trauma. And it's supposed to be this incredible, beautiful, I mean, it's disgusting, but a beautiful experience when you have a baby in your arms and you're like, oh, look at him, honey. Isn't he beautiful? Or whatever.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, where did he go? Oh, he's having sex with my friends. Okay. And then all of your girlfriends are there going, are you okay? Instead of celebrating, you know what I mean? It takes all of the attention away from like the beautiful part of it, which is community building.
And even if you're not talking about what's happening, the baby's still, like you said, feeling all the emotions. And you know, I mean, I really like, even on her Instagram, like today, like I do think she's hurting. Like I think that it's like a struggle. Yeah.
I mean, she stated that in the I was gonna say in the session, in the episode, saying this is so humiliating.
Yeah.
This is like betrayal, because it's not just the cheating, it's the public cheating, and it's a family member.
Yeah.
A friend, like Chloe, dude, run, like from the therapist, run, cut it all off. You can be a fantastic mother.
Yes.
Without him.
Without him.
You already are, in fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that because I think Scott was
ironically
cheating or had,
he had some
like sex addiction or something like that, which is, you know, that's also a huge thing, and I wonder if we'll be seeing more of that as
I was really surprised
quick,
that he
you know,
was
it's like Tinder,
support.
like quick, fast, like I can get whatever I want whenever I want.
Permission. I give myself permission to say yes to things because in this moment I'm feeling uncomfortable. This is going to make me feel better. But I've always said, and I mean, you agree, that reaching outside of yourself to fix something that's broken inside feels good for the moment. It's not sustainable. It never fucking works, you guys. It never works to reach outside of yourself to fix that broken piece inside.
No.
It feels like it does.
Sure.
For a tiny little moment.
Sure.
But what you're doing across the board is ruining your life in order to not have that 15 seconds of discomfort.
Yep.
Which is, I don't think I'm ready to have this relationship. I understand that you're pregnant with my baby, but I just don't think I'm ready to be monogamous. And that is literally the conversation. And do you think
people are even capable of, like when you say like the external is not going to fix you, right? I think that's something that's like that, like, you know, self-awareness, yes. Or like in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that like self-actualization, yep. that I wonder if that is achieved.
Usually in treatment.
If you can't stop.
Right? If you are in drug treatment, that is something that's reintroduced and redefined and shoved in your face, and then your nose is rubbed into it. It's essentially saying, this doesn't work anymore. Yeah. Because there's no amount of heroin in this world that's going to fix that empty hole. There's no amount of sex with hookers that's going to fix that self-esteem problem. There's no amount of alcohol that's going to make your dad love you. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, that just, it just doesn't work. It helps.
Do you think that's what the cheating is? It's
yes.
part of that?
I think it's
external.
Reaching outside of yourself to fix that really ugly core of you. Like, I am unlovable. I am unattractive. I am not spectacular. I am, you know, not smart, not valuable. So I'm going to find the person who tells me the things I want to hear to make me feel those things, and then just envelop them and absorb them until it's over. Be like, oh, well, I guess I could just leave those bad, guilty feelings and medicate it with booze. And when I feel bad about how I behaved when I was drinking, I'll medicate it with shopping. And when I feel bad when I get that bill, I'll medicate that with church. You know what I mean? And it's just like, you guys, just sit still.
But why?
But why? I mean, keep going. But come on, like just, and I always say, tell yourself the truth. Yeah. The truth is, I am struggling. Yep. And I really don't have a complete identity right now. And I really am looking for somebody to fill those holes. And nobody is doing that for me.
And I think when you're in those relationships, whether you're the cheater or you're being cheated on or whatever that is, having that therapist or that friend, that third party that can kind of like help you process and go through all this stuff. Because that's the thing about therapy is you can't, or at least of what I've noticed being in my own therapy, is there'll be questions that are asked that I wouldn't necessarily ask myself. Yes. So you can't come to the conclusions if you're not asking, right? If you're not asking the appropriate questions.
Because you're coming from your own frame, right? It's like if I describe my childhood as this, and this. Yes, we had food, we had a roof, we had all these wonderful things. Yes, my parents didn't like each other, but at least they were still married, right? Yes, I did have to walk home by myself. I mean, it was the 80s. I had a key around my neck. I would let myself in. If the phone rang, I'd be like, yeah, exactly. My mom's in the shower every time you call, kind of thing. So, yes, that was all fine and good. And then my therapist would say, you were neglected. No, I had food, I had shelter, I had, you know, all of my, no, nobody was there for you when you came home from school. Sometimes people didn't give you the advice that you needed. You were more of a shut up kid instead of a how are you feeling or what's going on, right? Yes, you were neglected. But I would never go to that conclusion unless somebody was like, well, these are the things I'm hearing, right? Of course you can't ask yourself those questions because you're seeing it from your own framework. It's like, no, I can't.
And that goes back to like what we're teaching kids, right? Because True's a baby now and can't figure out what's going on.
Yes.
When she's older, what is?
Because it's online. Yeah. It's on TV. Yeah. Right?
What is that gonna be?
It's on the tabloids. I mean, how long ago was that? 10 years ago?
Was it that long ago?
I feel like it was at least 5 years ago when he went to the bunny ranch and tried to essentially die by way of sex and cocaine. Oh. Which is kind of an amazing way to die. But the fact that he didn't die and was like put into a coma, and then she, as his legal wife,
like went
to his bedside and made the decisions for him medically. When I don't know if I can make the correct and kind decisions for my husband.
Well, like, sure. I'm angry at you.
Like, yes, we're still married.
No, very tactful of her for sure.
Right? And that's just unconditional love. And the problem with unconditional love is that you begin to attract assholes who take advantage of that. For every giver, there is a taker.
Yep. No, that's so true. That's so true. And I think like as, you know, it doesn't matter if you aren't sure what type of relationship you want to be in, because we're talking about monogamy, polygamy, all this stuff. it matters that you know your true self and what that means. Not to be this different person for other people,
Totally.
but to really like look and explore and process what your needs are. Like you said, there's 50, I have 20. Like it's okay for you to have like bottom lines and things that you need in a relationship.
And uncomfortable conversations. A 15-minute uncomfortable conversation can definitely reroute 25 years of bullshit.
Yeah.
And if you are trying to avoid that one 15-minute conversation and sacrifice your self-esteem and your ability and probably some sort of health issue, I'm assuming with the 1 out of 3 with herpes, right? If you are not willing to have an uncomfortable conversation about how you want to be monogamous with your partner and then your partner's cheating on you and then bringing home diseases, that's a lifelong commitment to avoid a 15-minute conversation.
Sure.
And if you can't have a 15-minute conversation with that person, grab a therapist and have that conversation with them and like let them give you permission to be like, this is probably not a good relationship.
And figure out like how to discuss it or talk or
Right. This is your life.
Always advocating therapy.
Oh, I mean, shit. Everybody should be in therapy. But also, I feel like therapy is that place where you can sit down and say things out loud. And when they're out of your head and they're into the air, sometimes you see how illogical these things are because we have these hidden doors and like trap doors in our brain, right? Especially there's these blind spots from our childhood, from our own relationships, from our inability to have a healthy relationship. Bunch of blind spots where it's like, well, if I just la 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 this whole time, which is kind of what
that we
Chloe's
can't
been
see.
doing.
Yeah.
If I can't see it, then it doesn't exist.
Sure. Which is the I think I was telling you yesterday, the new Chelsea Handler book that came out, Life Will Be the Death of Me. We love you. Life Will Be the Death of Me and also of you, or whatever the other part is. But it was I was listening to it on audio and it was just beautiful because I do, just watching her and how vulgar she was and all that stuff. And she's kind of saying, hey, there was some hurt there. There was some hurt there. And this is how I explored it and processed it. And this is how I came out. And she did that with Dan Siegel, who's phenomenal.
Guru.
And so I do think that having somebody that you can do that with is really powerful. And she felt like she was ready. So, and you might not feel ready, and you can go and check it out. And if it doesn't work, and
it's like rain check, right? And most therapists will be like, "You have my number."
Yeah.
Right? Because I'll have people come in and they'll spend like an hour with me, and they feel like they're doing really well, and by the end of it, they're cured. And I'm like, "That's awesome. You're welcome."
Yeah.
Right? But here you have my number, and if you ever get into crisis again, if you feel like you're struggling, dude, hit me up. Like, I'm here. You know where I live and you know where I work. Just show up,
Yeah.
It's a PRN kind of thing. Like, if you're in crisis.
Just to be able to process when you need it.
Hey, if you've been in therapy for a while and you develop this relationship, most qualified therapists will be like, we're good. You know what I mean? Hit me up when you need me. And that's kind of a really great relationship to have. It's like,
it is.
It's like having a healthy mother and a healthy sister or father and brother all wrapped up in one, who already has your story, and you don't have to catch anybody up. They're just like, dude, I really need to talk to you. And it's like, awesome. Come on in, right?
Come talk. Yeah. Always advocating therapy.
Yeah. Psychology today.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. So when it comes to cheaters, it's like kind of going inside and exploring what you need. It's not a great situation to have to be in. And I would definitely go talk to somebody if you're on either side of that to kind of explore what your real needs are and what your true self is.
Totally. Define what you need in any relationship. Have a conversation in the relationship. The beginning of a relationship is the negotiation. When there are no feelings and no property involved. Demand and command respect in every relationship.
Yeah. Love that.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.